SciByte is produced by JupiterBroadcasting.com, independent entertainment that's on demand. Check us out. Hi everyone, you're listening to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science podcast. We streamed this episode live on April 10th and released it for download on April 11th, 2012. My name is Chris, and joining us like every single week is our host, Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey, happy science to you.
Happy science.
What are we sciencing about this week?
We're going to take a look at baby mammoth hair color, feathered dinosaurs, plasma, NASA funding, Apollo 13, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
Always a favorite. You know, I'm actually kind of surprised that we haven't gotten grief for using science kind of like a verb.
Yeah, it is a noun, an adjective, and a verb.
Yeah, it is, at least on this show, right?
Yes. I believe I have heard it mentioned.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a lot to get into this week. A couple of the news stories that ripped right out of the headlines that I was kind of keeping an eye on this week. Didn't get to fully jump into, so I always love it when we cover this one. So are you ready to just do the news?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. What is our first story today?
A well-preserved mammoth was found in Siberia.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. A couple of people wrote into me, including Peregrine Falcon from the chat room, making sure that I saw this one.
Good
but extinct animals like the mammoth are generally studied from bones and teeth and tusks, so they can, because these are the parts that decompose very slowly over a relatively long period of time. Now, soft tissues such as muscle, skin, organs, you don't really find them in older carcasses because they decompose so much quicker.
Yeah.
So
Gross.
most of the information we get from species or specimens from ancient or extinct creatures consists just solely on the bones, the bone fragments. There's very specific things that we can get the information from. Now, we've recently discovered a remarkably well-preserved frozen juvenile mammoth carcass. They nicknamed it Yucca.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the pictures in the show notes you've got, I would say it looks like, it looks dead. It looks like it's been dead for about a week.
Yeah.
Maybe two. I mean, it really looks in good shape.
And it would look creepier, like more real, like once we get, like, the more you find out about it, the more it's like, whoa.
Oh, really? Okay. You have me interested.
Yeah. So they haven't quite finished carbon dating on this, but they believe it to be at least 10,000 years old.
Wow. That's incredible. For how good it looks, that's incredible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's got flesh, it's got pink skin, it's got blonde red hue, which they have been kind of arguing over hair color. And there were some scientists that said, hey, we see, genome type objects that indicate that it could be blonde-ish. So
it almost looks like it even has like the junk between its hoofs or whatever you want to call those. Like there's still stuff in its hair. Yeah.
It was crazy. It looked like it was flash froze, essentially. This poor little guy, probably 2.5 years old when it died. It had some healed lion scratches, so it probably tried to get attacked by lions before and it escaped. But there were a couple, deep, unhealed scratches and bite marks on the tail that suggest it came in with another fight with lions and didn't quite win on that one.
Very interesting.
There's evidence of a freshly broken bone. So being chased, it probably took a bad fall, broke its lower hind leg, and then poor little guy can't go anywhere. And then what they actually think is that there's actually quite good evidence that humans moved in on the kill. And
no kidding.
Either after it was dead or finished the job. And there are scallop marks on the skin, on the, indicating like little saw-like motions. Like they were pulling it out and they removed parts of it. They took out the skull, the spine, the pelvis, organs, vertebrae, ribs, muscles, even some meat from the upper part of the legs. So a lot of the internals were taken out. So I can only imagine, like, if it hadn't been, made dinner, various, pieces of meat and bones being used, then more of it would be there and would probably look even creepier. Being like total fresh baby mammoth.
I guess I don't see the connection between a flash freeze and then being able to harvest parts of it. How does that work exactly?
Well, the flash frozen means it was frozen very quickly, and that's probably why it was preserved so well.
So it froze after they had their way with it.
Yeah, they got everything they wanted, and then they buried it again.
Yeah.
My guess is that they probably removed all the pieces and then buried it again so that they could come back and use other pieces at a later date. The skull and the pelvis were actually found nearby. They weren't completely gone. So it's thought that maybe some of the bones used were possibly ritualistic in character or used.
That's actually exactly what I was wondering. And when you mentioned they used parts of the intestine, I thought, what would they use intestine for? Would they eat it? Or would they maybe use it for like the bladder for a water canteen? I mean, what would they use that kind of stuff for? It's very interesting to kind of get in their head and kind of figure out how they would use an animal like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's in Siberia. So it's probably you catch this kind of creature and it's a baby. So it's not going to overwhelm you. But they took everything they could get out of it. They're like, all right, grab everything now. Let's go. We'll bury this so we can come back for the rest of it later, maybe.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They might have been right. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, some people might recall there was another fairly well-preserved baby mammoth found in the last couple of years. And it's well preserved in the way that it's all pretty much all there, a little bit of a tail or an ear missing, but it's, it looks kind of black. They were able to go in and see how old it was on that one, because they go in and, drill the teeth out and check the growth marks, just like tree rings in a tooth. So they will tell, and tell the contents of its stomach. So that little guy was very young. This one is about 2.5 years old. So quite a bit older. And most obviously, when you see the pictures, is the hair.
Yeah.
I was reading it and then I saw the body and I was like, whoa. It's like cool science, but it's so strange to see that older creature with that. And of course, it brings up the whole cloning and reinvigorating the mammoth, bringing it back from extinction.
Which is crazy as it may seem, not that far out of the realm of possibility, and there's got to be quite a bit of DNA there. I mean,
yeah. I mean, they were talking about it with the other mammoth baby that was found, that there could have been enough DNA to find that. But in this one, there is hair, there's soft tissue, so much potential there to be able to get DNA from that. Now, cloning probably take years or decades to get to, but it's certainly possible. So, and this is also speaking of, one of the people, main scientists who have, gone through and talk about this as they find different mammoth specimens with any sort of preservation. He'll pop back up and say, yeah, this one is definitely the most has the most possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is so well preserved.
Well, what it makes me wonder is, would you foresee a future where we're sort of doing this with animals that are on the planet today that are nearing extinction? And if we could have the ability to clone them, would we want to clone them so that way we could restore that aspect of the ecosphere?
If I recall correctly, they do already have, I think they're called like frozen Noah's Arks, where it's nitrogen frozen, just like, you can bank DNA of anything. They'll take the samples of the blood for various creatures, especially wild. If they can get, wild elephants or wild something, they'll take that and then they'll take various, zoo-born ones and kind of keep specific strands
On standby.
Strains on standby.
Worst case scenario kind of thing.
Yeah. If the population dips to such a degree that it is no longer viable to get enough diversity, then you can start reintroducing various lines. You can reintroduce this.
Who makes that decision, though?
There's probably a certain zoos or organizations may have their own. There's probably a conglomeration of zoos or these type of preserves that all go in and say, all right, we're all going to store them here. And then should something happen, we all come back and be like, we need to fix this. Can we hit the Control Z? So kind of a copy paste.
Undo.
Undo.
Yeah.
Totally undo. Go back.
So shifting gears back to our woolly mammoth here. Any other thoughts on this guy?
I was just, it really has to be seen if you go to the show notes and check out some of the stories about this.
And a good video from the BBC in there too.
Yeah, I believe they're going to have, they're going to make a show out of this. I think, BBC and Discovery Channel came together. As often, sometimes these larger media corporations will come together and fund to go out there to find stuff and to come back, and then they'll be able to show their documentaries online and make a shows about it.
It does make for compelling TV, that's for sure.
Yes.
And it's exactly the kind of stuff that it's a good use of money, too, for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, very cool. Well, I do believe that jingle means I'm supposed to stop here just for a brief moment and remind folks that SciByte is a listener and viewer, because we do both, contributed show. In fact, when you don't hear a main sponsor on here, that means that that means we're paying for it out of pocket, but you can help us with those costs in actually one really easy, great way. If you go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and you scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the site, you will find links down there for Amazon US, UK, Newegg, ThinkGeek, Best Buy, Mint.com, Audible, which the great thing about this Audible link is you go there, you can get a book for free, which is great. You can get some really epic books for free, you can keep them even if you cancel the Audible plan, and that's great. We also have a Chrome extension, and the way all of these work is if you click those before you shop, it tags your shopping session and contributes a portion of your purchase to Jupiter Broadcasting. That Chrome extension automatically does it for you, so you don't have to click on those links. And you know what? We got a Firefox extension that is in beta testing right now. So Firefox users will soon have an extension as well. But thank you to everybody who goes over to Jupiter Broadcasting and clicks on their affiliate links. You help finance shows like SciByte, and we appreciate that very much.
Most definitely.
Most definitely. All right, Heather, well then you know what that means. It's time for the SciByte News Bite. What's our first story in the News Bite?
We have more fine feathered dinosaur friends.
Fine feathered friends. All right, great.
Yes. These, the feathered dinosaurs come back every once in a while. We've kind of noticed a string of these announcements over the last 6 months or so. Yeah. But new fossils of one adult and two younger dinosaurs show evidence of extensive feather coverage on a dinosaur. Oh. Actually, the largest species to date of a dinosaur with this much feather coverage. It's found in an area of China that preserves these kind of things very well, preserves skin and hair, not like the woolly mammoth that we were talking about, but evidence of these kind of things.
Okay.
Now, this specific dinosaur, I'm sorry, I'm going to vaguely try to this. Eutranus holly. Why holly? It's a mix of Latin and Mandarin. Beautiful feathered tyrant. This thing probably weighed up to 3,000 pounds, stretched up to 30 feet long. It's, had a nice little nose plate, so it probably stood up about 8 feet tall. Should it have stood up straight?
Really? Actually, stand up straight?
Well,
as they do. As they kind of do. As
posture's unknown. You're never quite sure right at first how straight or how vertical or how horizontal they stand. They kind of have to make a guess that probably would have been about 8 feet tall.
Interesting.
But what I found really interesting was it's because of how they can tell how it grows with the bone structure and the skeletal features, actually makes it in the same family as Tyrannosaurus rex.
Just like a feathery, foo-foo, pretty version.
Yeah, cousin.
Yeah, actually, this mock-up they have makes him look very freaky. I'm not pretty at all.
Kind of shaggy.
Shaggy and scary.
Yeah, well, generally, I don't know how many people would want to, go up and make friends with the dinosaur, especially one that would, be very happy eating you.
So much for my pet idea.
Yeah. Even tiny ones, I don't know if that would work.
Yeah. Huh.
Now, this guy probably would have only reached like T-Rex's chest, but the feathers were not just little fuzz. They're about 6 inches long. We don't know the color, as we have with some other feather fossils, but it was probably a bit patchy, but kind of giving it a shaggy appearance. But it was covered a fair bit of the dinosaur. Now, they don't have complete fossilized skin, nose to tail, or imprints, so they can't tell exactly how much was covered by feathers, but a pretty good fortune. And they can take what they see, kind of make interpolations of if it was feathered here, it was probably covered this sections of the body. Now, they found kind of fuzzy feathers on young dinosaur specimens before. So they kind of thought, well, maybe the smaller dinosaurs or the younger dinosaurs needed to be able to stay warm. There's they're not quite big enough to keep.
Before hair was in, it was all about feathers.
Well, sure. But so they thought, well, maybe, that's why we find the fuzz. And so they found other, infants that they thought, it must lose the feathers pretty quickly. Because they've seen young Tyrannosaurus rex with feathers, kind of babe feathers.
Right, so it's like it's babe fuzz, yeah.
Yeah, just like fuzz.
Yeah.
But this is the first larger species to actually prove that even as an adult they kept the feathers. And, it's not just a one-off, maybe this one, dinosaur sort of kept its fuzz and never quite, got its adult.
Right. It was just an awkward duck.
Yeah, it was not an awkward duck. These were, 6-inch fully fledged feathers. They were not just, just feather fuzz. There's actual feathers. And of course, they're not going to be used to fly. Probably, if they were this large, they're not going to be using them most likely to keep warm. But it does indicate that possibly of some sort of mating ritual or, something like the peacock or other birds that, use flashy colors or specific color.
Well, that's kind of where I was wondering if you were leading to scientists think that at some point a dinosaur and some sort of bird thing got drunk and had a wild night, and then now we have birds. Are they trying to draw the line between these dinosaurs and modern day birds?
For a long while, a great deal of the science community has said that dinosaurs are more related to birds than to lizards. So they're, because of some of the bone structure, the hips and the ankles and things like that, more resemble bird ankles and hips than lizards or crocodiles or anything like that.
Yeah. Interesting. I say I'm glad that we don't have to deal with these kind of creatures in today's world, because that's one less thing we have to worry about. Any other thoughts on the fine feathered friends?
Well, with this spine, they're kind of reimagining how some of these look. Most people have always considered, very scales and very lizard-like appearance.
Yeah.
But now we're kind of going, well, if some of them had feathers, maybe we need to redraw the pictures in museums.
It's definitely a big departure from anything I heard as a kid. And I was really into dinosaurs growing up. I thought those were the coolest, craziest looking things. And I never saw any of them with feathers. So
no,
definitely makes you rethink about it. All right. Well, our next story is getting down with plasma to slay the bad guys, or I should say, the bad bacteria.
Yes. So plasma, the fourth state of matter. There's not just solid, liquid, and gas. There's also plasma.
Oh, goodness.
Yes. They've confused the matter states of science. So, but in the medical industry, they've been using it to kill bacteria and viruses on the surfaces of skin, in water. The plasmas, they produce an electrical discharge. So they have gases of free electrons and ions. And what is going on is they're hoping that these plasmas, which have already been used to selectively kill cancer cells or destroy pathogens or help heal wounds, they're kind of hoping they'll be able to take it a step farther or aim it in a different direction and make it more portable.
Yeah, that could be really great for all kinds of things. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's taking the highly reactive oxygen to generate oxidized cell membranes to damage DNA to kind of help heal it. It's the same type of oxygen interaction that's going on in our immune system naturally. So it's kind of kickstarting that or starting a new process.
Awesome. That is slick.
Yep. So, in the hospitals, they have these kind of things that are there, but in the field, it's
back to the old school stuff, right?
Yeah. Harmful bacteria is even a bigger problem. It's harder to remotely disinfect with these kind of things. But with this portable, it's not even, a plug-in thing. It's just looks like a flashlight that...
And you could run this over equipment and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, over a wound, over equipment, and kill the bad bacteria.
Yeah.
And they did some analysis and experimentation on this. They had a thick biofilm, which is essentially they stacked the most antibiotic and heat-resistant bacteria, the kind of thing that's found in that infects root canals during dental treatments.
Oh.
So it wasn't a very happy thing. So they took something that was about 0.0001 inches thick, consisted of 17 different layers of this bacteria, baked it all together for about 7 days, let it incubate, and they shone this light on it, and after 5 minutes, it had not only inactivated the top layer, but it penetrated down through all the layers of this bacteria and started killing off that too.
Wow.
So it's not just... So it was really working to very effectively kill the various levels of this bacteria.
But it doesn't hurt skin.
No. Plasma, there's no UV radiation, and it's just as low as a flashlight. There's no additional temperature change, so it's about between 20 and 230 degrees C, but that sounds a lot, but it's pretty much close to room temperature.
Okay.
So it doesn't do that. Currently, it only costs $100 or so to produce. And that's before commercialization. That's where they go back and they say, all right, how do we streamline the process? How do we get it built?
Right. So that's before they've even had like economy of scale and yeah.
So it's, this $100 flashlight of plasma that's essentially, shining on these things to have amazing antibacterial qualities. Now, I'm not quite sure, nor are they particularly saying how often this thing would have to be recharged of gases.
I guess that might increase the cost if it's very frequently, huh?
Yeah. But even so, if it can last so many hours, then maybe this is a field instrument that you have the gas cylinders back at the hospital. You charge it up, you charge up the power, you have a couple of these, and you take them out into the field, and each one's good for so many hours.
Yeah. Yeah, or a whole, not even back at the headquarters. You could just have them in the mobile vehicle or in your bag or whatever, theoretically.
Yeah, well, it depends. Yeah, it depends on what size of a gas container you're talking about to refill.
Huh. Well, that's really exciting. I'd love to see that come to the market. That could be great. Even I would like to have that even as a parent. Just something around the house, because my kids are constantly getting crap like on the ground, or just kids find a way to get stuff disgusting. Somebody should study that, what it is about humanity. You'd think evolution would have bred that out of us by now, but I tell you, they are fearless. So as a dad, I could just run around behind them zapping everything. Right?
Well, that gets into the whole theory of don't
over-sterilize.
Don't over-sterilize, because then they have like no immune system.
Right, no tolerance built up.
They go to the store or school, and they're being carted out on a stretcher, going straight to the hospital.
Well, I've wondered about that.
I caught a cold and not good.
I, as a contractor in the past, you go to so many different offices and stuff that for a little while I got into using the hand sanitizer a lot.
Yeah.
Because I shake a lot of hands and I go to a lot of desks. But other than it just started really drying out my hands really bad, I started thinking, well, maybe a little bit of this isn't so bad, because I'll sort of build up not an endurance, but a sort of
tolerance.
A tolerance, that kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm generally, when I go out, if I use that, a lot of times I'm more likely to if I'm sick or I just got sick. And let me consider the next person who's going to use this shopping cart and make sure they don't come down with whatever I just got over.
Yep. That's why whenever I'm sick, I always flush. That's all. Anything else on that story?
That broke science brain. Total science brain breakdown.
Well, let me do this then. I just want to remind everyone that last week on SciByte, we mentioned that I have declared my book this month is Star Wars, Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy. Am I getting that right? The Thrawn? Is that right? The Thrawn trilogy, book one.
Trilogy.
That thing. Great Star Wars book. Tons of fantastic ambiance. I'll just play a quick clip. I know I played some of it last week, but you just got to listen to how awesome this is.
For a man as young as Tichel to serve as a bridge
listen to the background
aboard
sounds.
A ship like the Chimera. Now, he looked down at the equally young man at the engineering monitor.
How awesome is that? The ambiance in this book is fantastic. Link in the show notes. In order for the show to get credit, you do have to use that link. And again, if you're signing up and you use that link, you get the book for free. You really do. So it's 1 credit, and it's 13 hours and 10 minutes worth of content. It's a great book. Check it out. Fantastic reviews. Again, that's Star Wars, Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy.
Thrawn
trilogy, book 1. And link in the show notes, right towards the top of the show notes, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
All right, Heather. Now, I believe we have a... It's not exactly a spacecraft update, but it is an update to a story.
It is an update.
So what do we got?
Well, we saw when James Cameron went down to the Mariana Trench and very suspiciously did it right before his 3D Titanic.
Nothing related to the movie he's re-releasing in 3D.
Totally, probably not. Yes, totally. So now it's actually come out that he made one significant correction to the movie.
Oh.
Just one change.
Oh, so he actually changed something in the movie other than just making it 3D. Okay, all right. I did not know that.
Yes. In the scene where, spoilers, but everyone watches Kate laying on the piece of driftwood and she's looking up at the stars.
Heather, it's not a spoiler that the Titanic sinks. If that is a spoiler, then people got other problems.
Well,
Yeah, I remember that scene. It's sort of towards the end of the movie. I'll just say that. And it's a bad situation. She's floating, and it's very cold.
Yes, it's very cold, and everyone goes, "Oh wow, that's so poignant." Except me and a couple other scientists who looked up at the stars and was like, "No."
Really?
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember looking, because I have a strong habit of anytime there's stars in the background of a movie, I'm looking at the stars for a few moments, ignoring the movie. I'm like, is that proper night sky? Is that like real, or is that totally fake? So I did it with this show, again, with this movie also. And not only was it just not real sky, like it was a mirror reflection. So the left half, just a mirror reflection of the right half of the sky. So anyone who's like, not caught up in the drama of the movie and is,
I thought girls are supposed to be all, I thought, gosh, jeez, here I am. I'm all swept up in the movie and the drama by it, and you're looking at the stars. That's great. That's just awesome.
Sorry, that's my brain. But who also saw this was American astronomer Neil deGrasse Tyson, who some people may know as the killer of Pluto. Totally not his fault.
It kind of made him famous, though.
Yeah, it did make him famous, and it did make him hated, and he got hate mail and death threats.
But now everybody loves him. The internet loves him now.
Yes, now he's popular.
That guy swung that guy made lemonade, Heather. He made lemonade out of those Pluto lemons.
And tried to sell it. So he kind of accused, the original. He came out and was like, "Oh no, totally not real, and including not real for that time and date."
Yeah.
At that part of the sky, completely wrong. So sent some, little, snarky email to Cameron, and he said, and he's like, "Well, if you want to send me the right stars at the exact right time for that part, then sure, I'll do it."
Awesome.
He's a bit of a perfectionist. So Tyson went in, and there's astronomy programs where you can go in and say, on this date, at this time, in this location, what would the sky look like?
Yeah, sure.
So that's what he did. He went to the correct star field for 4:20 a.m., April 15th, 1912, in that area of the ocean, and sent it to him, and now it's been included in the re-release. The only major technical change to the entire movie.
I remember when that movie came out, one of the stories I read was that James Cameron had them develop special water rendering technology so that way his CG water could look as real as possible, because he felt no movie to date had done CG water correctly, and he was determined to be the person who cracked it. And I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So, all right. You know what? I have this. We already hit this one, but this button's flashing again. Let me smack this. Oh, look at that. Apparently, we have a spacecraft update as well.
We do. There's been extended funding for a couple of NASA programs. Hooray.
Really?
Yes. Actual good funding information.
Wow. Okay. This is like the first.
Yeah. It's been a little tight.
Have we ever covered NASA getting more money on this show? Ever?
They don't have more money. They've just continued giving certain programs money.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
Now, there's been quite a tight budget. A lot of programs have been cut. In fact, Kepler, we've been looking for all the exoplanets, so we've talked a lot about. It was actually slated to run out of money this November. So scientists were kind of worried about it.
Yeah.
It requires several years of observations to even confirm that an orbit has been repeated, that a planet is actually transiting a star. This is one of those programs that need long-term data to be able to extract, to be able to say, this is a planet. So...
Right, you have to observe something for a while. Observe it, orbit, and all that kind of stuff.
You have to see 3 orbits, and so...
So by its very nature, it's multi-year, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, the Earth takes a year to orbit the sun, so technically if you had a planet in the orbit and the speed of Earth, you'd need at least 3 years.
If you're lucky enough that it goes that fast.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough that you catch it in just the right time.
Right.
You're not seeing in November when you should have been able to see it in January. Mm-hmm. Now you have to wait for, 3.5 years to be able to see it. But they have continued funding Kepler. So we're going to see more planetary information. It goes out to, I believe, for another 4 years. So they've got a couple more years of funding there.
Do you know what kind of dollar amounts we're talking here? Do they say?
I don't think they do. And some of these programs are, they're probably fixed budget, but this is a lot of these programs it's heavy front money because you have to build and you launch. Yeah. And then it's just upkeep. And
keep the lights on, keep the gear running, and keep the machine staffed.
Yeah, you have to keep everything staffed and make all the corrections to make sure things are sitting in the right location and they're still pointed in the right direction and maintaining an orbit.
I'm sure the data analysis probably has some costs associated with it.
Yes.
So, but yeah.
Data analysis and all the.
But it still surely can't be as much as building the telescope.
Oh no. So Kepler got funding. Hubble Space Telescope got extended funding, so it can keep going.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. Another Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope and Swift Space Telescope. These are all kind of more, astronomy interested. So it's like studying gamma ray bursts that are like X-ray surveys of the sky. You can check out new laws of physics, what comprises dark matter, black holes. Those are the kind of things that these other telescopes and programs are working on. But what most people are more familiar with is that Kepler and Hubble got more funding. Now, this is the kind of thing that the group of scientists come together every 2 years, and they kind of look at the docket of all these programs that are coming up for, their funding is slated to end, and they'll kind of review everything and say, okay, this goes forward. This is not getting any more funding. And this is one of the very few years that I think all or pretty much all of the programs survived.
Wow.
So I
am just shocked by that. I am just completely shocked by that because it's so opposite of what I expected.
Yeah. Now
maybe I shouldn't be such a cynic.
Well, at least for Kepler and Hubble, there is a lot, these kind of big names, there's a lot of pressure. There's going to be political pressure. There's going to be, just groundswell of people going.
And if they screw up, the cost could be very high for future funding.
Yeah. One of the previous NASA administrators years back, when they said, we can't go to the Hubble rescue mission. They're like, no, we can't go up there. It's too dangerous.
Right.
To go to that orbit level to go fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was such a huge outcry, like, what are you thinking? You're just dumping Hubble to the side of the road?
Right.
No, don't do that.
Right. Don't abandon it.
Yeah. So there is, there's a lot of information about Hubble and Kepler too, because it's been making so many headlines about, planet discovered. We found the Tatooine planet. We found, all these various planets.
It helps giving them, now in retrospect too, it helps giving them names like the Tatooine planet because there's even more of an emotional connection with that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember they called up Lucas and said, yeah, we've got this. Can you come to our news conference and let us call it this?
And he gave them the official Lucas blessing on that, huh?
Yeah, well, you can't really do much, that much publicity without at least giving him a nod and letting him say, yes, you can. But these other programs are also very important, more towards the data analysis side and providing scientific data to go through and look at all these, black holes and gamma ray bursts and understand these type of things and looking at the early universe and figuring out how a lot of these crack the mysteries of incredibly powerful explosions and all these early parts of the universe. So there's a lot of in-depth data and a lot of science going on with those.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the science community is very happy that those continue on.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, so these 4 programs are kind of really big. They've been doing a lot of work, really good, heavy lifting. And so there's a lot of deep breath, exhale, let out.
A lot of sighs of relief.
Yes, very sighs of relief. Everyone's not turning blue in the face anymore. These are all continuing, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you step on over here because I got the time machine tuned to a very specific date and time. Come on, Heather, let's go. Here we go. Oh, watch out. Jeez.
Almost.
Sorry, I didn't fix that panel yet. I didn't want you to get shocked. All right.
Thanks.
The SciByte time machine this week brings us back in time to April 11th, 1970 as our first stop 42 years ago. What happened, Heather?
This is kind of a trio of looking backs.
Mm-hmm.
The 11th, 13th, and the 17th. All 42 years ago, Apollo 13.
Yeah.
May have heard of this program.
Yeah. A great movie.
It actually happened in real life, too.
Well, a great movie, too. Yeah, well, that's why it is such a great movie, because it happened in real life. All right, kick it off.
So, on the 11th, it was actually launched. And actually, very little known incident occurred during launch, a second stage boost. The center engine shut down 2 minutes early. So all the outer engines had to burn a little bit longer to compensate. So kind of a minor incident that gets quite overlooked at this point because many other things happened.
Yeah.
So it was the 3rd manned lunar launch. It was going to be the 3rd one to land.
Mm-hmm. So
it had, James Lovell, Fred Hayes, and John Swigert. And Swigert was actually a late replacement. Just like a lot of people know this stuff because
the movie.
Yeah, the movie. So there was exposure to German measles,
mm-hmm.
and the original pilot, Ken Mattingly, had not had German measles as a kid, so he got shelved. He got put on the bench. And then April 13th, 200,000 miles away from the Earth, Houston, we've had a problem. Liquid oxygen tank exploded, disabled the normal supply of oxygen, electricity, light, water. All the things you really need in space.
Jeez, could you imagine how freaky that must have been and how isolated and alone those guys felt?
Yes. And I always think of the moment between that and the moment that they actually called in and say, yeah, we have a plan. I mean, you're rocketing towards the moon and you're like, we're going to figure out a way to do this. We're going to figure out a way to turn around and come back to Earth.
Well, you got to figure those at some level, those guys must have also been extremely bummed out that they're not going to the moon. I mean, not only were they probably terrified, but they were also, I mean, think about the training and the type of unique opportunity to all just, and have to just look at it go by. I mean, even getting to go that close to the moon and see it is a privilege, but I really, oh man, I couldn't. I mean,
there would have been two of them would have got down to the surface, and there would have only been. They would have been the fifth and the sixth people to walk on the moon. Mm-hmm. And instead, I mean, they did. They had to make the loop around the moon and come back. So you make the loop around the moon and you're looking down at it. You're like, yeah, I could have been down there. Instead, I'm hoping to get back to Earth.
Gosh, yeah. And it's unclear if they will.
Yeah, they were really hoping. Now they had the plan and so many little things could go wrong and did go wrong. And they didn't really know how bad the damage was. It was everything was a guess because all the instrumentation said one thing, but they didn't have any external cameras to show them what exactly happened. Mm-hmm. And it was when they separated from that module in order to return that they were actually able to take photographs of all the damage. And everyone was quite surprised at how extensive it was.
Right. The whole side panel in this picture we're looking at was blown away.
Yeah, it actually came right down to the heat shield. And they were kind of worried about that. Now, I don't believe they actually told the astronauts, but they were kind of concerned that it may have done something to the heat shield.
Sure.
So let's just keep positive, everyone. Let's look for the parachutes. And sure enough, on April 17th, splashed down in the Pacific Ocean 4 days after they left, or after they aborted the mission. They were 4/5 of the way to the moon, and they came back and... Actually, Lovell, J. Lovell Jr., became the first American astronaut to travel over 700 hours in space.
What an adventure, and what a story.
Yes. So...
And it lives on. It lives on as sort of like an American lore. It's one of those things that, while very, very unfortunate for them at the time, now is one heck of a story and one heck of a movie.
Yes, failure's not an option. Movie... Great, fairly accurate movie, actually, and should you want to go buy it, use the Jupiter Broadcasting link.
There you go. Now it's time to look up into the sky. What's going on up there this week, Heather?
We've got Venus shining up in the west during and after twilight. It's at about 2.5 hours after dark. Mars, actually, is going to be high in the southeast at nightfall, about the highest in the south by mid-evening. Jupiter, our good friend, is sinking a little bit lower towards the sunset below Venus. It's had its moment in the sun. It's kind of getting a little bit lower now.
It's moving on.
Yeah, it'll come back, though.
Okay.
And Saturn is at opposition on the 15th, which means it's the best time to view it. It's the sun, Earth, and then Saturn all in a row. Huh. And so it's a little bit bigger. It's great viewing. It'll rise about sunset. Highest in the south about 1 or 2 a.m., daylight savings time. And there's actually a phenomenon where you can, because of the way things are rotated, I don't recall if it's going to happen this year, but it's certainly possible that the rings will look very much brighter than the planet almost.
Really?
Well, it's because of the way Saturn's rings are full of all sorts of ice crystals. And the way it's lined up, if it's lined up just right, they can shine back.
Catch the light?
Yeah, catch the light and appear brighter than the planet itself.
That's really cool. A little ice in those rings, and
yep.
Makes all the difference, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Heather, I think that's the whole show right there.
I think it is.
All right, everyone. So SciByte is live over at jblive.tv on Tuesdays at 7:30 Pacific, and then we're out for download. You hear us mention it several times during the show. We always recommend you check out the show notes because there's tons of extra stuff in there, and Heather puts all kinds of extra goodies in there, including like things like we were talking about the Kepler satellite, right? The Kepler telescope. There's Twitter links in there to follow that thing, to see what it's tweeting about. I mean, all kinds of stuff in there. So go check that out. And thanks to everyone who grabs that Audible book or uses those affiliate links. We really appreciate it. And it helps support the show. Heather, a great show this week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning to this week's episode of SciByte. And we'll see you right back here next week.